to write the body paragraph, you need to turn to the next page, page 9. Okay, there's plenty of space for you on page 9. You're going to copy down exactly what I write on the board today. All right? Don't just sit there and stare at it and then take a picture at the end and assume that's going to like absorb magically into your brain. That's not how it works. You're going to copy down what I write. You're going to help me out at different points with stuff too when I ask you questions about what we're doing. And again, the whole idea behind this is that body paragraphs are where you earn your grade in this essay. It's where you actually prove your thesis. So rather than giving you an introduction, I like to write it in front of you because you can see like my thinking, how I proceed through it live. Okay? So it shouldn't take, too long. And like I said, you should get some time at the end of class today to actually start your body paragraphs. Okay? So to do this, you got to play pretend today. All right. So I'm pretending that stuff in the back is what you have already in your packet. Okay. So in your packet, you should have at this point, if you're where you need to be again, on page 5 and 6, you should have a chart, right, with your thesis and all your quotes and why you picked those quotes. Okay. That chart is essential to writing your body paragraphs. So as long as you feel like you have good quotes in there that support your thesis and you organize them logically, you're just going to go through that chart to write your body paragraphs, right? Now, when you start writing, you may find like, hey, maybe I need to move this quote to a different paragraph. That's okay. But so what I did is I recreated just a section of that chart on the back whiteboard. So I have an example thesis that we're going to use. We're going to pretend that I'm writing the same paper you are, and that's my thesis. And then we're going to pretend that those are my 2 quotes there. Okay, one is from The Crucible, and one is from the Rolling Stones song. Because while I'm writing an example, it is an example. I don't want to give you a body paragraph. So I didn't use 2 quotes from The Crucible or a quote from Young, Goodman, Brown because you guys are doing that. You got to do some work on your own. So you don't have to copy that down or anything yet. It says you should. Yeah. That's okay. All right. So the first thing that I would do, again, I'm just trying to walk you through my process here today. If I was writing a paper using that thesis, I would go back to my thesis and I would identify like 2 to 3 keywords that I'm actually trying to prove in this paper. I try to simplify it as much as I can. So my sample thesis says Arthur Miller uses symbolism and characterization in The Crucible to highlight the societal violence in society, that is often caused by corrupt power. Okay, so like my whole paper would probably be about like the reverends and other church leaders and the judges that lead to many issues within Salem society, right? Because even though the young girls are a problem, the adults who condone that behavior and let it keep going are probably the biggest problem because they have all the power, okay? All right, so that's my thesis. So that's kind of a complicated thesis. If I were to narrow this down and think about what I'm trying to prove in my body paragraph, I would underline symbolism, characterization, violence, and corrupt power. Okay, those are the key words to me in that thesis. And you should be able to do the same thing with your own thesis when you go to write your body paragraphs. You should be able to look at your thesis and underline, okay, what am I trying to prove here? And I think that'll help you get some focus for your body paragraphs. Okay? All right, from there, I got to actually write the thing. So to help you guys write paragraphs all year, I'm going to give you an acronym. I like acronyms. They keep things simple, and they're easy to remember. So your acronym to write any good body paragraph on anything, when you're analyzing anything, not even in this class, but anytime you're asked to analyze anything, is right here. Okay? I call it TIQA structure, or Tika Tika. Okay? The T, and all that is a guide to organize your thoughts in your paragraph. So each letter stands for something. The T stands for the first sentence of a good body paragraph. Anybody want to guess or know? What do we call that first sentence of a good body paragraph? You're hesitant now. Will?
Topic sentence.
Nice. I like it. Topic sentence, not baby thesis. No babies in here. Don't do that. Okay. So your first sentence of a good body paragraph is a topic sentence. So a topic sentence basically takes your thesis and focuses it a little bit more on one specific topic. So my options up there are underlined in red. All right. So my 2 quotes, just because I picked those out already ahead of time, they mainly have to do with characterization. There's no symbolism really going on back there. So I'm going to say this for my topic sentence. So this is where you want to start copying stuff down. By the way, as I write, I'm also going to take some notes to the side on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So what you want to do on your page there, skip a line each time. Okay, so you got enough space. So I'm going to say, let's see. One way in which Miller shows violence and corruption in the play is through his use of characterization. Okay? All right, so that's my topic sentence. Okay, we got that one done. And so ultimately, in a good topic sentence, and that's not perfect, this paragraph isn't going to be perfect, by the way, too. This is why I do it in front of you. Same thing with yours. It's a first draft for a reason. But it's kind of clunky. But I said, one way in which Miller shows violence and corruption in the play is through his use of characterization. You should be able to underline some of the same keywords you have underlined in your thesis in all of your topic sentences. Because that's ultimately what you're doing in this essay is you're proving that thesis with this stuff. Okay? So everything has to connect. Everything has to add up. Okay. So now I got my topic sentence. Any guesses on what the IQs? Oh, what? Is this a question?
No.
Oh, it's a guess. Guess, IQ?
Is it introduce quote?
Yeah, nice. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is introduce a quote. All right. Now, you have to put in some work to do this, to introduce a quote. This is one of the number one things that I see all the time that students mess up. It's even so my first, second, and third hour have already written this same type of essay. They wrote it on something else, but they're turning those in this week, and I still see, even though I've already done this, lots of IQ problems, introducing quotes problems. You can't just slap a quote in willy-nilly whenever you feel like it, okay? You can't just have a topic sentence and then a quote. You have to introduce it, all right? So I'm going to start with that first quote back there. And that comes from the exposition of the play. It doesn't come from dialogue. It says, their fathers had, of course, been persecuted in England. So now they and their church found it necessary to deny any other sect its freedom. Okay? All right. So when you introduce a quote, basically you're introducing an example to support your thesis. So you always want to transition. So a good transition for an example would be, for example. Okay? For example, comma, because I need a comma after a transitional phrase. For example, he establishes, and he means Miller, because I already have his name in the last sentence. For example, he establishes this early in the exposition of the play when he claims, and now I'm going to introduce my quote. Okay, and I'm going to go back to that introduction and explain what I did and why I did it in a second, but I'm going to get the quote in first. Okay, so remember, anytime you introduce a quote grammar, you need to, especially if you're using something like this, we call it a dialogue tag, right? Claims, states, says, notes, proclaims, exclaims, questions, whatever. Pick a verb. You need a comma before your quote. So Now, if I'm introducing this quote, this goes back to what we talked about with those aliens the other day landing in your backyard in introductions. This is my first body paragraph. I'm introducing a quote. Does my reader know who I'm referring to if I say their fathers? No. Okay, so I got to add some information to help my reader out. So I'm going to say, for example, he establishes this early in the exposition of the play when he claims the Puritans, and I'm going to put that in brackets because that's what you do whenever you add information. The Puritans, close my brackets, had, and I don't need of course, so I'm going to cut that. If I'm going to cut something, what do? Emma? 3 dots, right? Ellipses, 3 dots. Had ... The Puritans had been persecuted in England. Now I'm going to keep the rest the same, I think. Period. So now they in their church. I know who they are now. So now they, in their church, found it necessary to deny, and instead of saying any other sect, it's kind of wordy. I'm going to say deny other religions, in brackets. Let's say any other religions. Put all that in brackets. Freedom. That's the end of my quote, so I close my quotes, and I've got to end with my citation, which I already have back there. You should already have also in your quote chart. That's why you did it. Like I said, the more work you do up front, the easier the essay is to write. So we're going to say Miller, 460, because that's the page number. Always remember, with very few exceptions, you end your quote, then you've got your citation. Your period always goes on the outside of the citation. Okay? All right. So I got my topic sentence. I introduced a quote. Now I got an A. What is an A? What's an A?
The argument.
Close.
Analysis.
Nice. Analysis. Okay, now I got to analyze. Okay. And this is where you make your money. Okay? Because, not literally, the paper is a literary analysis. So analyzing stuff is very important. Okay? All right, so now to do this, I got to reread, which you should do too. Always reread what you just had. One way in which Miller shows violence and corruption in the play is through his use of characterization. For example, he establishes this early in the exposition of the play when he claims the Puritans had been persecuted in England. So now they and their church found it necessary to deny other religions their freedom. Okay. All right. I always like to transition into analysis pretty simply. I just used a quote, so I'll say, in this quote, or in this passage, Miller shares the historical background of corrupt power and hypocrisy that eventually tears Salem apart. Okay, so now here's your rule of thumb. A little math for you here. Because it's a literary analysis, your analysis always has to be greater than your IQ. Your analysis always should be more substantial than your quotes and your topic sentences. And what I mean by that is if your TIQ like I have here is it's 3 sentences. Really, it's 2 sentences, roughly 2 sentences. It's 2 sentences, then your analysis has to be at least 2 sentences. Okay? Because you want your analysis, so it should be greater than or equal to. Your analysis always has to be greater than or equal to your topic sentences and your quotes, because it should be the majority of your essay, right? All right, so I said in this passage, Miller shares the historical background of corrupt power and hypocrisy that eventually tear Salem apart. I still need to talk a little bit about characterization here, too. So I could say, like, the characters of Judge Danforth and Hawthorne most clearly represent this dangerous leadership throughout the play as they use their power as a means to eliminate citizens from Salem. If I wanted, I should probably be more specific and say, like, to eliminate outspoken citizens from Salem. Okay? All right, halfway home. Because there's a deal. Yeah. In a good paragraph, you got to do this twice. That's why you got 4 quotes.
Do the second part on our own? Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, you'll be fine.
You don't trust us? I mean, no.
You'll be fine.
Trust us.
All right, so now we've already got a topic sentence, right? So the second T doesn't stand for topic sentence. That wouldn't make sense. What do we have to do?
Topic number 2. Baby thesis.
No! Come on! You got to transition into another quote, which reminds me, we need to go back and talk about how I introduced this quote, because that's really important. All right, so this is how you want to introduce a quote. Every time you introduce a quote, you got a transition, okay? You can take note of this stuff on the side. Got a transition, and then you've always got to answer 2 questions every time you introduce a quote, okay? You got to answer who's involved. Okay, in this case, I just said he, right? Because you should know from the previous sentence that he means Arthur Miller. It's from the exposition, so the author's the one writing it, okay? Who's involved? In this case, it's he, okay? In your examples, it's probably going to be characters, Proctor or whoever's saying the stuff you picked for your quotes. So you always got to answer who, and you've always got to answer when/where. Okay? What I mean by that is when or where does it take place in the play, in the text, okay? Here I say early in the exposition, okay? It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to say like in line 75, okay? You can say early in the play, middle of the play, act 3, act 4, towards the end of the play, at a moment of crucial conflict. You can get as specific or as vague as you want, but you got to answer those 2 questions in some way before you introduce a quote, okay? You can't just throw your quote in, and don't ever say the text states, okay? If the text is talking to you, get up and run away. It's a weird text, okay? There's always someone involved besides the text. Okay, so now we've got to transition and bridge into another quote. Now, for me, like this, my paragraph that I'm writing is way harder than yours because I'm using like a random Rolling Stones song I got to make. So if I can do this, you can do it. Okay. So you guys have it easier. You got Young Gun Brown or the Red Scare or something. So I got a quote back there. I picked that one from the song because it talks about kings and queens, and I'm talking about corrupt power and violence, so I felt like it made sense. So I'll say this will be my first sentence. And you could use a similar bridge sentence in whatever paragraph you're writing to connect the crucible to whatever you're using. Okay, you can say like, these ideas, that's terrible handwriting. These ideas are not found only in the crucible. But in literature throughout time. Okay? And you don't always need a whole sentence to transition, to bridge into your second quote. But sometimes you do. In this case, I felt like it made more sense since it's such a strange example I'm working with. Sydney, question?
No, never mind.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I IQ'd an aid and T'd again. Now I got to IQ again. Now I got to introduce my second quote. And to do that, I am definitely out of room. So I'm going to erase this. You guys can stretch if you need to.
I was on sleep while writing. I'm like writing. I'm like, because Nickelback is rock. But then there was a cat that was like,
Hard rock.
well, it was like they're from Canada, so
Could it be like a
well, and then it's like hard rock, like migration country rock.
So would it be rockabilly? But like, no, that's not even what rockabilly sounds like.
Post grunge.
That's what it also said. It said post grunge.
But I feel like it's not grungy.
It's definitely not.
Nickelback rock.
All right, so now we've got to introduce our second quote, which comes from the song. Well, I have to introduce my second quote that comes from the
Oh my
song.
notes down here.
So, all right, refocus.
Let's do it.
Never. I already used, for example, I'll say for instance this time. You one sentence variety. For instance, in sympathy for the devil, by the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger.
I feel like this is your
Is it-
favorite band.
Wait, is it Nick spelled that way or is it just MC?
What?
That's Mike.
That's
M-I-C-K.
I know, but isn't it just like MC and then
I don't think so.
I feel like it's weird
I'm
you spoke
Googling
Mick Jagger.
Google it.
Okay, anyway, for instance, in Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger sings.
I'm gonna quote Julie's Redline. Oh no, he has it right.
Let's do this. Your kings and queens. Now, also, this is a little different too, because, like, you know, I got the slashes back there because I'm treating it like a poem. That's how you would do that with a song or a poem. Your kings and queens, slash, and then that quote back there. We're just going to use all of it. Fought for decades.
It's
Oops.
simple writing it out.
I forgot 10. Fought for 10 decades. For the gods they made. And then citing page numbers for Youngum and Brown or paragraphs for the Red Scare article, I am going to cite, those are line numbers. So that's what you see there. But this gives you an idea too. If anybody has a quote that goes from across multiple pages in the Crucible, like say 460 to 462, that's how you would do that. Okay. Close your parentheses period on the outside again. Yes, Sydney.
So in mine though, like mine are like on completely different pages. So you just write the different page numbers because it's not like it's like 62 to like
Oh,
3.
yeah, you would do 62, 65.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that is my second. We've introduced the quote again. I'm not going to go back and underline how I did that, but you can see it. You know, again, I answer where in the song, who, those two things. All right, so now I've got to analyze. And again, this is really where you're making money, because this is the last part of your body paragraph. So everything's got to come full circle now back to that thesis. Okay? So we could say something like both this rock song and the play attempt to illustrate the violence that is often caused in societies by poor leadership. And then I'm going to add one more sentence, again, just because your analysis always has to be greater than or equal to everything else. So I'm going to go back to the idea of characterization, because that's what this whole paragraph is supposed to be about. The characterization, actually, no. Let's do this. I'm going to use something I said earlier. While the young girls, or I guess young women, while the young women of Salem initiate many problems in the community, the characterization or characterizations, the characterizations of those in power such as, who are some people in power in the play?
Reverend Paris.
Well, such as Paris, Danforth, and Hawthorne. Now I forgot where I was at, so let me reread this. While the young women of Salem initiate many problems in the community, the characterizations of those in power, such as Paris, Danforth, and Hawthorne, show the true evil behind this society. Okay? All right, so we talked about paragraph structure, topic sentence. You're going to introduce two quotes at different times. You're going to analyze. You're going to transition in between your two examples. Hopefully we're good on grammar and citations. We kind of talked about that as we went, right? One grammar thing I did want to note real quick. I'm going to circle some words up here. I just circled action words, verbs, okay? Sings, attempt, illustrate, show, is. You got 3 options. Past, present, future. What tense are those verbs in? Present, right? So make sure you note somewhere. You need to make sure, even though the Crucible took place a long time ago and was published a long time ago now, you're writing about it right now, you're talking about it right now. So you need to use present tense verbs as much as possible when you write your body paragraphs, okay? There are going to be some cases where you have to use past tense, where you have to mix things up in quotes, and that's okay. But for the most part, you want to try to stick to present tense verbs when you're analyzing anything, okay? Also, hopefully you've noted, I know we talked about this with the thesis, but throughout the introduction and now a body paragraph, shouldn't have any first or second person anymore. No I's, no me's, no we's, no R's, no U's. And I do know, like, you actually have a start to your analysis of your quotes. If you look at your chart, you explain why you picked the quotes. That would be a good organizational tool for you when you think about what you're going to write for your analysis in your body paragraphs. But just remember, you got to eliminate any first person you used. Okay? Okay, any questions about body paragraphs? Think we're good? Remember I'll show you too another resource here real quick. On the next page, there's some reminders. Okay, there's also chicken sandwich. I'll talk about that sandwich tomorrow. Okay, don't worry about it right now. But some important reminders. The Crucible, anytime you use the title of the play, it goes in italics. Anytime you use Young, Goodman, Brown or the article on the Red Scare, quotes go around titles of shorter works like short stories and articles. And then, everything else in that page we've already talked about today. So just 2 reminders there on that stuff. Yeah.
So I forgot my packet, so I've been writing this all on the computer. Do you want me to transfer that? Or?
No, don't worry about that.